Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is Indy Fanatics, your home for IndyCar content with weekly podcasts and feature videos. Welcome back to another, IndyCar podcast. But obviously this is a special one because it is the season review. So we're going to do this in two parts over the next 2 weeks. This first part is going to be talking about the first half of the season. So starting off with the Texas Motor Speedway and ending with the Indy 500s. And then next week, we will cover the second part of the season. And I suppose, obviously, when talking about this, we're kind of going to go through the 7 races in the first half of the season, talk about them, just kind of have a general chit chat about it. You can obviously post your memories and thoughts on the season and first part of the season in the comments down below as we go along. But yeah, we'll go along, and I think everyone knows pretty much the first half of the season was dominated by Scott Dixon.
One man.
Yeah. And he was the guy that won the first race of the season. And obviously we'll get on to, he won the first 3 races of the season. But Texas Motor Speedway wins was being pushed by teammate Felix Rosenqvist. And I believe this was actually a race, well, Joseph Newgarden had put himself on pole and looked comfortable, and then yellows, I don't think cautions worked in his favour, which allowed Scott to cycle up to the front. The podium was with Simon Pagenaud, and Joseph Newgarden did make the podium, which kind of, I think, sneakily went on under the radar now looking back. Team Penske.
Because obviously Rose and Felix was chasing Scott, but then had an incident with... Who did he collide with? Was that Palou?
I'm pretty sure it was... No. So this was also the rookie performances of Palou and VK. And VK lost it, spun and took out Palou.
That's the one.
Go from there. But yeah, Rosenqvist was trying to overtake a lapped car.
Oh, yes.
And he was trying to get around Hinch, I think, and then someone else went around the outside as well. And because it was a really weird track, because obviously ovals are renowned for the kind of overtaking and the strategy coming into play. There's generally quite a few overtakes on ovals just because of the nature of the circuit, and the cars stay quite close together. Where the NASCAR race had been on, there'd been marbles on the higher end, so using the full range of the circuit was really difficult, other than that kind of one grooved racing line that everyone just kept on going, and obviously changed as the race goes on. But yeah, it was a difficult one. But yeah, it was a real shame for Felix, and I can say it kind of set a tone for the season. He started probably like Chip Ganassi as a whole, started the season very well. Obviously a shame for him not securing P2. Scott Dixon leading, but Felix Rosenqvist obviously looked strong early season as well.
Yeah, it was a very good performance by him. Obviously, until he lost it.
Yeah, and notable moments. Just Scott Dixon, once he got the lead, was pretty dominating throughout. Although Felix was going, Scott was still favourite in that situation.
Was on Scott's side that day, and he took full advantage.
Yeah, but once he got ahead, in fairness, he overtook Newgarden on track on pace. And then he was just flying. He was just like, I am laying down a marker here in 2020. I've had to wait months for this because obviously, that's the first part of the season. The season was delayed. We turned up in St. Petersburg and had to go home.
Yep.
Situation, not us, but obviously IndyCar as a whole.
We had to go home.
We had to go home. I mean, everyone had to go home. In situations. So yeah, I bet they were all itching to go, and it felt weird starting the season on an oval. Not since I think the Indy Racing League they kind of done that in IndyCar. But yeah, so that was the season opener, and little did we know, obviously going to the next race that we went to on the calendar was the Indy Road Course.
Yes. The first of what would be, did we have 3 races there in the end? Or was that?
Yeah, we had 3 races because we had the doubleheader Harvest GP, and we obviously had the road course.
Yes.
Second race of the season.
Which, yet again, Scott Dixon wins.
It was a little bit more tricky because Graham Rahal in the, obviously, Rahal Lenneman Racing had a very good race. Rahal Lanigan Lellerman race. Rahal Lellerman Lanigan Racing. Oh my God, I've got the Lanigans and my Lettermans the wrong way around. Rahal Lellerman Lanigan Racing. Right, yeah. Graham had a great race.
Yeah.
Really did. He looked the one, and I think cautions at the wrong time hindered his pursuit of the lead, and it allowed Scott to just slide into the lead on that front. And also on that podium, we had, I will check on through into remembering. So obviously Graham Rahal came second to Scott in that race, and Simon Pagenaud as well. And
again,
you know,
2 podiums in a row.
I think it goes under the radar that Simon had quite a good season. And I think not quite a good season, quite a good start to the season.
Yeah.
And I think that's what set him up for a top 10 finish, because second half of the season,
no way.
It really just didn't go Simon's way.
Nothing went right in qualifying. And so he never was in a position, unless he got lucky with cautions, to really capitalise, which will come on to one of those lucky incidents in a few races' time.
We certainly shall.
But yes, first road course, Dixon takes the win. Graham with a strong performance. And yeah, Pagenaud.
Funnily enough, obviously it creeps a little bit into part 2 of the review. But I actually think that was the worst race out of the races we had at the IMS road course.
Yes, probably.
Season.
Yeah.
There were still obviously good elements to it. Graham Rahal was the standout. I think Joseph Newgarden, from memory, was one of the guys who really kind of suffered under caution. I think he got cycled towards the back. And I think Pato as well. There was definitely a group in this race that lost out.
That race, didn't he?
Lost out big time to the cautions in the race, and that's what you get in IndyCar. You know, well, in anything, in the timing of a caution and what set of tyres you're on and taking advantage of it, that really can determine a race, and that's why the split strategies become really interesting, because you are right in it to the end, and that's why guys fight so hard to stay in the lead lap, because if you're in the lead lap, you're still in the mix.
Yep.
Somehow and going there. But yeah, I think that probably rounds up nicely the IMS road course on that one. It was Scott back-to-back wins at the start, and obviously starting to build that early championship lead. And obviously,
which leads us nicely on to race number 3.
Scott Dixon. We went for our first doubleheader of the season, which was Road America.
Yes.
And Road America is a great circuit, but for me, before we go onto the podium, my most notable memories of the Road America doubleheader was Will Power just had a brain fart weekend.
Oh yes, was it race?
I think it was
race 1. He didn't. Race 1, he was in the lead, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And then he had the radio message of, "If Scott wants to get past me, we're crashing out." And then I think it was a mistake in the pit lane by Team Penske, and that's how Dixon got ahead.
Yeah. And then race 2, he basically caused 2 collisions.
He was a cannonball.
Yeah, he was. Will just lost his head, and that would probably be for me Will Power's worst race of the season, the Road America race 2. Obviously, we'll come on to that a little bit. Yeah, but my notable memories of it was just a weekend that really went badly for Will Power.
Yeah.
It just did not work out for him whatsoever. But yeah, another kind of commanding race that we joked, obviously at this stage, we're just getting into IndyCar, and we're like, it's not an IndyCar race if Scott Dixon doesn't win.
Yep. Because every single one was a Scott Dixon win.
Yeah, at this stage, and we're going crazy. But yeah, Will Power finished second, and probably really impressive. And maybe not surprising, and he's now obviously going to be Scott Dixon's teammate for the 2021 season. Alex Palou got his first podium of the season. I think potentially his only podium of the season, but he really looked good on the road courses.
Yeah. Well, that's his experience he brought over from Europe.
Exactly.
He had no experience on ovals, but he's had that experience on the road circuits, and so could actually properly race. And yeah, like you said, his first and only podium, but it's his rookie season. One podium is a massive achievement.
I think results like this the ones that encouraged Chip Ganassi to sign him for the 2021 season, because I think the Alex Palou decision came quite a bit out of the blue.
Yeah.
I don't
Quite a
think,
big surprise,
many people, I think, obviously, we were talking Oliver Askew maybe being potential to that seat. Maybe, you know, a couple of other big names, because the number 10 seat's a big seat. You know, in that Chip Ganassi team, it's a competitive seat, you know, if you get yourself going. And we know how good Chip Ganassi are as a team. So, yeah, for your second season to be promoted into that, it shows how highly Chip Ganassi must rate him.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know he was thinking Alex Palou, it was a little bit, I think he was talking a little bit in doubt, you know, whether he'd be able to compete next year. Next thing you know, he's got Chip Ganassi knocking on the door.
One of the best seats in the house.
Exactly, which you go, wow. And it's going to be really interesting, that team dynamic, I think, next year. Scott obviously will be the main championship contender, but how will Marcus and Alex do? If Palou outperforms Marcus...
Then you've got the rookie in Jimmy Johnson.
Well, absolutely. Oh, well, that's the thing. We've had testing in Barber, wasn't it? And you don't know what fuels and stuff, and Jimmy hasn't really started on putting things, but he was 2 seconds off Renus VK's speed lap. But it's the first time he's ever been to Barber, and it's, I think, his first real proper time, you know, getting the IndyCar
in an
together.
IndyCar, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he will be a rookie next season.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not expecting too much, but yeah, obviously forgetting later fall. But I think Marcus has a really big season ahead. I think Marcus has to beat Alex.
Yes.
To have the respect within the team.
His third season in IndyCar?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yes.
He had
Second
his
with Chip
first season
Ganassi.
with Aerosmith,
Yes.
second with Chip Ganassi. So he's now had that season under his belt with the team. He's got to kick on, otherwise I could see that number 8 seat being recycled into someone different going forward. But yeah, Alex Palou was a very interesting one on that. We'll move on to Road America 2.
So the podium was Dixon,
Power and Palou.
Palou. Nice.
The second one was, well, it was just Chip Ganassi. What a start to the season.
It was heartbreak.
Heartbreak for you as a Pato fan. But what a start to the season for Chip Ganassi. 1, 2, 3 with Scott Dixon, then Felix Rosenqvist gets his
Win number 4.
first ever IndyCar win, and win number 4 for Chip Ganassi.
Yeah. And it was that great battle at the end between Felix Rosenqvist and Pato. Pato on the reds and Felix on the blacks, and Pato's tyres were just going with a couple laps to go. I think it was a last lap overtake where Felix just had the tyre life and the push to pass in hand and made the move. It was great.
It was a brilliant battle for the leads, and one of my highlights of the season, I would say that, because you had 2 young, talented guys. Funnily enough, they're turning out to be teammates in the 2021 season. But yeah, just going wheel to wheel, fighting tooth and nail for that first win, and probably the experience of the Chip Ganassi team coming in there.
Probably.
You know, making the right decisions in there. And Aaron McLaren made superb progress. And obviously under Schmidt, Peterson, Motorsports, they've been a good team within IndyCar anyway. But, you know, they've been a good team without the budget. Now with the McLaren and stuff, they are starting to look better. Big statement getting Felix Rosenqvist from a Chip Ganassi, I think. And, you know, progressing for the future with 2 talented young drivers.
Yeah.
It is exciting, but it was fantastic wheel-to-wheel action. And on such a narrow kind of racetrack, it was brilliant to just see that close wheel-to-wheel racing and respect between the two.
They didn't take each other out. They were so close. I'd encourage you to watch a replay of it, because it was great. It was great on-track action. Go 2x2. I love it. I love it when cars go 2x2 and not take each other out. It's great.
Yeah, because, you know, one mistake, you can lose the car. And it really, I think, going side by side wheel-to-wheel racing shows how good these drivers are. And especially in IndyCar, you know, obviously we've done a feature video on it, on comparing the steering between F1 and IndyCar. And obviously having no power steering, it is so hard. And just to fight in it through those corners, as well as being side by a car, it was a really great battle from 2 young rising stars within the series, I would definitely say. But obviously, Pato finished P2, and Alexander Rossi getting his first podium of the season. And he probably is. He's a guy who struggled. First race of the season, had software communications issues that meant that he didn't start the race. From there, we'll come on to obviously later parts with Alexander Rossi and how it really...
The first half of the season really wasn't him.
No.
His time.
I'll be honest with you, this race and then the last 5 races of the season was basically, six races it went well. The other 8, you just basically go,
no.
Oh my, right off. And I'll mention someone as well, because we got Andretti here, Autosport, talking about Alexander Rossi. Colton Herta finishing P5, and Colton had a really mature season, I think. And this first half of the season in particular dominated it in terms of he just kept racking up those top 10 finishes.
Yeah.
And I believe actually in the first half of the season, he was the driver out of anyone who had the most top 10 finishes.
Yeah. I think it was him and Scott Dixon.
Yeah, exactly. Which, just showed the consistent level. And considering that was only his second season, I mean, there's lots of hype and excitement around the talent of Colton Herta. But really, that was a real level of maturity in just one season. And you feel Alexander Rossi needs things to go his way, but Andretti Autosport next year might have 2 guys pushing it all the way.
Yeah.
Which would be superb for the team because, especially this first half of the season, although you've got that podium there with Alexander Rossi, that was pretty much the highlight of their first half of the season.
For the first 7 races, yeah, Andretti were nowhere.
No, they really struggled on that.
Colton, that's what made Colton's performances, even though they weren't podium, just getting in that top 10, getting those important points, being really well placed for the end of the season, which will come on to next week, where we look at the standings and we'll finish.
Actually, looking at that race, under the radar, Marcus Ericsson getting a P4 in that race.
P4?
And that's that was his best result of the season. And it showed just early doors, Chip Ganassi really had a great car.
Yeah.
And all the drivers were really happy with it. Because you've got Scott Dixon winning 3 as expected, because he's just a guy who wins races. Rosenqvist picking up his first win, was on the podium in the first race before obviously that mistake obviously saw him retire from the race. And Marcus Ericsson getting a P4 4 races in.
Not bad.
Pretty decent. And I think Marcus Ericsson was looking on to a top 10 finish or fighting for the top 10 when it got to Indy 500. But we'll talk about that. But probably the standout... Is it standout? Well, probably the most exciting result, shall we say, the one that kind of grabs the headlines now that we move to Iowa, is race 1, Simon Pagenaud won from the back.
From last to first. A journey.
It's
a Frenchman's journey.
It's one of those things, as primary F1 fans where we came from to now obviously coming into IndyCar and becoming big fans of the series. When someone says to you, you can literally be last and win a race, it's something that you kind of go, yeah, no, okay, yeah, sure, that happens. But it actually did with Simon Pagenaud. Yeah. And yes, obviously in these sort of situations, the cautions have to go your way, but it was a brilliant drive from Simon.
Yeah. He was in the right place at the right time at every stage of the race.
And again, like we said, although qualifying went wrong in that, and this was probably the start of when qualifyings were going wrong, because he had to start both races because the qualifying from both races was back. And Scott Dixon had a poor qualifying as well, didn't he? But he managed to end up on the podium.
Wasn't he second in the end?
Yeah, he was.
And Will Power third?
No, Will Power was on the podium in the following race. It was actually the first podium for rookie Oliver Askew.
Of course, yes, this is the race. That just jogged my memory. That the 2, Pagenaud was flying ahead. Scott Dixon wasn't really challenging, but he was there or thereabouts. And then you had the 2 charging McLarens. I think they won the red tyres at the end of the race. Absolutely flying. But I think they both got caught in traffic in the end, which meant they couldn't both challenge for those podium spots. But yes, fantastic podium for Oliver Askew.
It was, and actually, obviously, we come on to it'll be, well, where are we on? This is race 5, isn't it? So the second race, race 6, Pato, I believe, finishes ahead, and they were actually neck and neck. They were 3 apiece after the first 6 races. Oliver Askew had beaten Pato 3 times, and Pato had beaten Oliver 3 times, which proves again what a good rookie season Oliver was having up until we'll get to the IndyCar and Indy 500 crash that basically curtailed his season and saw him lose his seat at Arrow McLaren. But you know, it was a fantastic drive. Both of them again took advantage of the cautions, but they just had so much pace. Their setup, Aaron McLaren just got it right that weekend, and especially in that race, they looked quick. And it was a surprise, actually. Obviously, you being a Pato fan, you're like, oh, Pato, because obviously that was, I was going to say that was their first podium, but no, obviously Pato got P2, bringing up that heartbreak again. But, you know, that would have been back-to-back podiums for Pato.
Yeah.
So it would have been impressive on that front. But no, still very impressive from there. And Joseph Newgarden, Pato finished P4 and Joseph Newgarden finished in P5. And it quietly goes onto the radar of Joseph Newgarden.
Just been there or thereabouts.
Yeah, and as much as obviously we bigged up Colton Herta, Joseph Newgarden, things didn't fall his way, and I think this was another race where cautions didn't fall his way. Yeah. He wins actually the second race.
Yeah, because I believe it was ridiculous because there was like, I think both Newgarden and Power were leading at one stage or another in that race, and it was Pagenaud who was the one that from the back won it.
It was like, how has this happened? How has this happened? But it did happen.
Yeah.
But Joseph Newgarden is still recovering to P5. But Iowa is just... he's probably going to be gutted, obviously, that there's no Iowa on the calendar for next year, because Iowa is just a race and a Team Penske race that Joseph gets right. And it proved that the second race, Joseph Newgarden won the second doubleheader of the season. And by this stage, we're enjoying the doubleheaders. We're like, okay, give me another Indy race. Let's go. It was getting to the stage, I think, with F1 races at the same time. We were watching like 6 races across a weekend with like 2 F2 races, 2 F3 races, 2 IndyCar races, and an F1 race. So 7 races a weekend. It was getting mental.
But we wanted more.
More racing. But yeah, it really was a superb drive for Simon. But yeah, we'll focus on that race too. So Joseph Newgarden, like we keep saying, won the race. Will Power did come second. Yep. So he did get on the podium. And Graham Rahal finishing third. So his second podium in the season. And, you know, I think he did actually in the final standings finished ahead of Takuma, had a P6. It was a really decent season for Rail Letterman Lanigan Racing.
Yeah.
But without ever getting above where they're expected, obviously.
Other than the race we're going to move on to next.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? And I suppose that's probably the surprise. Well, maybe not the surprise for Takuma winning the Indy 500, because Graham had been the better driver up until that stage of the season.
Yeah, obviously narrowly missed out on the first not Road America,
first Indy Road Course.
Yes, that's the one. And then obviously got another podium. Where are we?
Iowa.
Oh, yes, the second race of Iowa. Where are we? Where am I? But yes, he was looking very good.
But it was an all-round good weekend for Oliver Askew, actually, because following up from his podium, got a P6.
P6.
So that was very good, kind of. And that, leading into the Indy 500, was giving him the lead in the Rookie Championship. He was ahead of Rinus VeeKay at this stage before well, we'll talk about Rena's VK in the second half of the season and how he really kicked on. But another driver I probably want to mention is his first full season and Meyer Shank Racing's first full season is Jack Harvey.
Jack Harvey, who's another man that's just been in the top 10 every race.
Yeah, he got a double P7 in this race, and they know where they are at a team. They're not at the stage. They might luck into a podium if things work out. Maybe not luck into it, like a good strategy. They just nail it one day. But they know where they are. They're a midfield team. They're building. This is the first season that they haven't been Meyer Shank Racing with somebody else. Schmidt-Peterson Motorsport with Arrow McLaren entering the Indy 500 with Andretti Autosport. They were out on their own. They've got the ambitions to bring 2 cars into the series as well in the future. Whether they get a part-time seat next year, I think that's yet to be seen. But they definitely have a very strong 1 full-time seat with Jack.
And they've also got that investment from Liberty Media coming in.
Exactly. And they also, their investment in Jack, obviously, we recently did a video on, he was the latest in our Who Is series with Who Is Jack Harvey. And, looking back at his Indy Lights career, second runner-up in both of his seasons in the Indy Lights Championship. 2016 wasn't given a seat. 2017 had 3 races, 6 races, 10 races, and then 14 races this season. And he really shows that he's a consistent performer and a guy capable of being there. And they're a sneaky team, I think, to look out for. And again, a sneaky one that just did a lot of good top 10 finishes. And it was a very good weekend for that team. Right. Let's get on to the big one. The Indy 500. Hey.
Much later than usual. It was hotter than usual, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
And that's the big thing before the race, that Honda engines were looking a bit better in the hotter conditions than the Chevy engines.
And it proved later on in the race when Takuma just literally went, phew,
yep,
just fired out the lead and left Scott Dixon baffled.
It was like a batch of Honda cars, and I think Newgarden and Pato and their Chevys were just like,
they were there.
Sorry?
They were really there, and then they had nothing. They had absolutely nothing to compete. And
I think before we go into the race, qualifying, the pole of Marco Andretti.
I think that was the real feel-good of the Indy 500, wasn't it? Obviously, the Andretti name is so intertwined with the history of IndyCar. Mario is the all-time pole sitter and still second all-time. Scott hasn't overtaken yet. All-time wins. Obviously, a multiple champion within the series as well. Michael Andretti, Mario's son, equally successful within it. Wins within the series. Indy 500 winner as well. Both Indy 500 winners. So Marco never done it. Never won the Indy 500. And it's probably his best chance to kind of really... It looked like his best chance to win it.
Yeah. But...
that quickly went.
Just like the Andretti just couldn't get anything right first half of the season, other than that first Road America. The car just never looked that competitive compared to the Chip Ganassi cars, to the Rahal and Lanigan cars, to the Penske cars, Aaron McLaren cars. Andretti just weren't up there.
No.
And quickly Marco cycled to the back.
And this is the biggest race of the season. This is huge. This is the one that draws kind of guest names into it. Hilo Castro-Neves got a Team Penske ride. Fernando Alonso getting a third seat at Arrow McLaren, joining in as well. There's just 33 entries. Usually there's more, and we didn't get bump day this time around. Obviously, understandably, because of coronavirus, maybe teams weren't going budget-wise. But this is the one that everybody wants to win. And it was a shame that it finished under caution, but it was a hell of a race.
It was a great race.
There was so many things. And we start off, Oliver Askew obviously crashes. Would later find out that was, lead to a concussion that would affect the rest of his season. Rule out him getting Rookie of the Season pretty much, with missing those 2 Harvest GP races. and he hadn't quite been the same after that results-wise, and losing his seat at Arrow McLaren as well. Marcus Ericsson was going on for a kind of top 10 finish within the season, but crashed out here. And you got to remember, Indy 500 is double points. So if you crash and you don't get any points here, or you get low points here, it really does kind of fall you behind your rivals massively on that front. Who else did we have? We also had Rinus VeeKay was having a fantastic rookie kind of performance within the Indy 500, looking good for a strong finish until he crashed into his pit crew, and that basically cycled him to the back. Connor Daly as well had been having a decent season up until there, but crashed out. Was obviously the crash that then caused the Oliver Askew crash beforehand. And yeah, it is such a tough and hard race for the drivers, isn't it? And you know, mistakes and cautions regularly happen.
I remember someone's brakes were on fire.
I think it was Marco Andretti's brakes just like lit up.
Yeah. Ed Carpenter had mechanical problems.
Yep, for about the majority of the race.
Yep.
Obviously, at this stage, we hadn't realised the point scoring system that if you get out, you can still get 5 points. So there's still incentive still to get out. We're like, Ed's still there.
He's
26. He's 30 laps down, but he's still there. He's not retired yet. He's not giving up. He wants to, and probably a little bit show for sponsor as well.
Yeah.
In terms of that, and there were so many fascinating. Scott Dixon pretty much dominated the race. That's soon as he got an early lead, Scott dominated, and Scott will feel gutted because he felt his second one was there.
We had that battle between Scott and Rossi where they were kind of just trading the lead,
and it was, well, you know, because it was the fuel saving one.
Yes.
You know, if you were out in front, you couldn't save the fuel, and you could just sit behind in the slipstream and save. And that's the thing with oval races, is the strategic element of it is so fascinating. Seeing the fuel saving, and it's why it always seems to build to kind of big finale, being on the right tyres at the right time, having the engine advantage, which Honda definitely did in this. And where our eventual winner, Takuma Sato, came from the last pit stops. Well, the last pit stop saw a penalty for Alexander Rossi, didn't it?
For unsafe release.
Clipped into Takuma Sato, didn't cause any damage to either ones. But it's a fair enough penalty, I think, on that front. But it was a shame for Rossi because he was right there.
Yeah. He
was right up there. And then we got an angry Rossi in the last one, and he get hell for leather, and he ended up crashing out in the end. And that again, like we were saying, sums up Alexander Rossi's sins. Because if Alexander Rossi had won that race, or at least come on the podium, then with how he finished the season, he may not have been too far away from putting some good results forward into a challenge.
Yeah.
Coming into the second part of the season.
Possibly, yeah.
But yeah, how Takuma, honestly, he just came out after that almost like Honda had put rocket fuel in his thing, because he was quicker than anyone. And his overtake on Scott, he got Scott early.
Yeah.
And it was a great overtake to take the lead. And then came the fortunate one of, I believe it was Pidgeot, who crashed into the kind of pit lane tyre barrier, didn't it?
Yes.
Which caused the last caution, which then led to the race finishing under caution.
Takuma, well, I think Dixon made a comment after the race, they didn't think they had the fuel to make it to the end. But if they did, it looked like Takuma was set for that win, caution or no caution, because traffic was in the way in between them. It looked like Scott didn't have much left.
But it was going to be exciting.
Yes.
It was going to be, and it felt, it would have been the perfect way to round off that. I mean, we do just, Indy 500 is the biggest motorsport race in the world. It is the best motorsport race in the world as a one-off motorsport event. And it was just tinged it a little bit with finishing under caution, because whoever would have won it would have been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
to go from there. But it was a brilliant race. Obviously, Pato Awards.
Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year in his
at the
first
500.
ever full Indy 500.
Yeah.
Going around. Well, it's his first full season, so he's not a rookie.
Yeah, but he was the rookie for the
It's like
500.
Jack Harvey. He's not a rookie because he's competed in 3 seasons. But technically, this is his first full season. So I kind of half view it as there. Hinch did decent with Andretti Autosport as well. And I really missed that. I think, because I think we got so carried away with Takuma winning and focus goes to that. I completely forgot. Graham Rahal got on the podium as well.
P3.
Jeez. So
a great day for
him. A double, both Rahal, Letterman Lanigan racing cars on the podium. And you know who finished P4?
Newgarden.
No. Ferrucci.
Ferrucci, that was it.
P4.
But Newgarden was P5?
He was.
And Pato was P6.
Yeah, Ferrucci did a decent job. And it's why Ferrucci is kind of felt like that he probably will end up in a top seat in IndyCar. He's been rumoured with the number 28, maybe going to Andretti Autosport. A lot of people maybe thought that maybe he might have been in the contention for the number 10 seat with Chip Ganassi Racing. But he may well have another season at Dale Coyne. That there is a little bit to Ferrucci that he's a little bit of a hothead. But the guy has talent, and to get 4th in the Indy 500 is no mean feat. No mean feat from there. And I suppose a guy who's always going to do well there because he's won there 3 times. But Hideo Castroneves, 11 from P27, I think it was, he started.
He didn't qualify well at all.
No, so that was pretty good. He cycled round pretty well on that front.
Do we do a special mention to Fernando?
Let's give a special mention to Fernando. He's the superstar name. He's the one that draws the crowd. He's the one that, outside of if you've got a passion for IndyCar,
draws the crowd. That's the low blow.
Well, that honestly is a big thing. We've had this year of coronavirus and no crowds, and we watched F1 races. We've watched IndyCar races. In fairness, some in IndyCar from Road America, I'm pretty sure we were having fans at the race. But Indy 500, you really did notice it, and you really missed the fans.
Because it's just that dome, the arena of racing, and the stands are empty. It's weird.
So, yeah, it feels a really odd one for that to be the case. But, hey, it was a brilliant race, and Fernando Alonso, it just didn't work out for him. And now it seems, now that he's with Renault, it's at least a couple of seasons that he's going to do as Renault want him focused on building them up rather than going and doing other motorsport adventures. And look, Takuma won it at 43. Fernando Alonso's 40. Yep. So he can still win it.
Still win out 43.
He can still win the Triple Crown. And that's the thing around Fernando. But I don't know about you guys. Let us know in the comments below. I think we both kind of feel he's got to do a full IndyCar season at some point to give himself the best shot. But, well, in fairness...
Or just do a part-time one and do the ovals.
Yeah.
If he doesn't want to commit to a full season, just do the ovals.
Yeah. But in fairness...
It's not many, but...
although I think we have a Texas Motor Speedway double header, don't we, next year?
That should be good.
But
yes, yeah.
But is ahead of the Indy 500, and the Indy 500 is usually the first oval. So that type of season would have actually been pretty good for Fernando. Because you got to remember, as much as it is driving the Indy car, getting used to it, banging the feel of it, it is different to what Fernando's usually used to driven his whole career in Formula One. But the oval setups and the road course and street course setups, they're completely different.
Yeah.
One, you've got to be more cornering, different turns of directions, rotating the car, acceleration, de-acceleration points. Indy is flat out over 200 mile an hour for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. and it is mental. In fairness, I'm not entirely sure if anything can prepare you for that.
No.
It is one of the most unique experiences in sport, like Le Mans 24 hours. You're driving a car for that. But yeah, it is crazy, and was a great first half of the season.
Yeah. There's nothing much to add. Takuma Sato, 2-time Indy 500 winner, and Honda looking very strong.
I mean, so impressive for Takuma to do that, actually.
At 43 years old.
And he just, on the ovals, he really does look a good driver now. And I know, obviously, St. Pete finale, we'll come on to it. There's still the Takuma element of things where he'll just send it occasionally and somehow end up in a collision with Takuma. But the ovals, especially this year, I think Takuma had a really good oval season.
Yeah,
definitely, for sure. But yeah, the first half of the season, only way to really round it off, it belonged to Chip Ganassi Racing and it belonged to Scott Dixon.
Yeah.
The only thing that would have crowned that first half of the season with it was if Scott had won the Indy 500.
For the second time.
That would have been super impressive. That is the only thing probably could have made this season better for Scott Dixon. And he would have cruised the title.
Yeah, if he won at the Indy 500.
Because he would have had another 20 points in the bag, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Which would have meant he would have won before St. Petersburg final.
Exactly. So I suppose we're kind of glad in that aspect that he didn't win. Because it kept Joseph Newgarden in the hint. But yeah, the first half of the season, Chip Ganassi just got it so right. And Scott was just so on the money. And I think his experience in a season where it was just weird and just... He has such a good family setup. Not that Joseph Newgarden doesn't, but I think all the years' experience he had in IndyCar just really came into fruition and helped him hit the ground running and get that early advantage. And it's so hard once you've got that lead to chase it back.
3 wins in a row. Jeez.
And we'll talk about that next week. But Joseph did do an incredible job just to take it that far. But again... P5 in that was just under the radar, getting good performances. Race win the race before in Iowa. It's just what he manages to do.
Well, it's Scott getting P2 was great. P5 for Newgarden set him up for the second half of the season where he was the man of the last 7 races, whereas Scott was the man for the first 7 races, which we'll come on to next week.
Absolutely. But guys, that is part 1 of our season review of the IndyCar 2020 season. Fantastic season, fantastic first half of the season, but it certainly belonged to Scott Dixon. Let us know in the comments down below your favourite moments from the first half of the season. Obviously, probably a lot of you will be Indy 500. It is the highlight for a lot of fans. But what was your standout moment of it? Mine is probably that race lead fight between Rosenqvist and Pato.
Yep.
I think that was definitely my standout moment.
That was fantastic.
For it. I think the Indy 500 finale would have been it, but obviously the finish under caution. Performer, obviously, is Scott Dixon.
Pato Award.
Well... To be fair, you got a good case for it, especially second half of the season, actually, I would say, in the start of it. We'll go from there. Anyway, guys, we'll end it. If you're new around here or haven't done so already, what can I do, Stephen?
You can like, subscribe, and ding that bell.
Ding it! So for now, you Indy fans, keep racing!